Well, that's a really good question, because when especially if we've been raised in the West, especially if, like me, you were raised in the public school system here in the West, the first question that often comes to our minds is, how does Genesis 1 relate to the theory of evolution? But if we kind of zap back and remember, Darwin, Origin of Species, that's relatively recent if we compare a 3,400-year-old Pentateuch, and we kind of zap back into, what did the first readers of the Pentateuch hear while the ink was still wet, as it were? What was in their minds that was significant? Well, they were the wilderness generation, right? They just experienced the Exodus from Egypt, and Moses was writing the Pentateuch, and they would have heard it read probably by Aaron, the high priest. As they were hearing the Pentateuch read for the first time, and it began with creation, as they heard creation, they would have also called to mind the plagues. Think about, they were raised in Egypt. They knew that Egypt worshiped the Nile as the source of life. And then when they heard creation, their God created all water and separated it. That generation would have grown up knowing that Egypt worshiped the sun god, Re. Well, their God, according to Genesis 1, created the sun, moon, and stars and set them in the sky. They grew up knowing that Pharaoh was worshipped as a god. And then they heard in Genesis 1, the crowning climax of creation was man and woman as created in the image and likeness of God as the crowning climax. All men and women absolutely created equally in the image of God, less than God, not gods, but more like God than any other aspect of creation. And that would have given this nation of slaves dignity. So the first is, when they would have heard Genesis 1, there's a confrontation with the gods of Egypt. Their God, the God of the Exodus, is more powerful than them. Look what just happened in the Exodus. And he's the one who created all these things. A second thing that would have come to mind is, again, to do with the plagues. Genesis 1:2 says, after, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. We got the summary statement. And the earth was, in Hebrew, tohu vabohu. And the earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And so it was without form and empty is this earth. And then on the 6 days of creation, the first 3 days the focus was forming the formless, and the next 3 days filling the emptiness. And in the plagues on Egypt, what Yahweh was really doing was, in a temporary and piecemeal way, returning Egypt to pre-creation chaos. And he was basically saying to Egypt, if you are going to oppress my people, I'm going to flex my muscles, and I'm going to undo you as a superpower nation that thinks you're so powerful and hot. But that's not even the number one most primary. The number one most primary reason that Genesis 1 and creation begins the Pentateuch is this. The people of the Exodus generation, the first readers, the first hearers of the Pentateuch, as it were the people that received the covenants. We got the covenant with Abraham. We got the promise in Genesis 15 of the coming Exodus. We got the Old Covenant, the covenant with Moses/Israel in Exodus 19 to 24. And these are the people that have received these massive promises that you're going to be my special people. You're going to exit out of Egypt. You're going to enter the land. You're going to be given this. You are going to be the special people, the apple of my eye. And if you were the first hearers of those kinds of promises, and then you read that your God created the entire world. He's not a localized deity. He's the God who spoke, and the sun, moon, and stars were created, set in place, and giving the earth light. He did all of these things, humanity is crowning climax, all of these incredible things. That's the God of the covenants is the God of creation. Therefore, he is good, and he's able to fulfill his promises. So that was just ironclad, all the promises that he has made for us. I am secure. He's not a localized deity like the deities of Egypt or like the deities around Israel that vie for authority with one another. There is one God. He is over all. He created all, and he is our God who has made promises to us. Isn't that beautiful?